Hello, my name is Matt. Today I'm going to show you a trick for memorizing 10 reference lines you can use for making cross-corner and cross-side bank shots all over the table. Once you know you're on one of these reference lines, you can confidently get into your routine with the knowledge you're going to make the shot. And I promise, if you can count from 11 to 15, and remember, 2, 4, 6, 8, this banking system is a piece of cake. Once you memorize these 10 reference lines, you can use them to easily recognize 60 common cross-corner and cross-side bank shots all over the table. After they become second nature, you can make simple adjustments for balls that don't lie directly on one of these lines to get them back on one of these lines, or parallel to one of these lines to pocket bank shots. These 10 reference lines are used by all good bank pool players even if they don't realize they're using them. Pros have intuitively internalized these reference lines from lots of repetitive trial and error. I want to thank Dr. Dave and Ralph for introducing me to this banking system. They are the masterminds behind it all. I just found a way to simplify their system so you don't have to do complex math at the table. I've put links in the description below to their material which explains the system using their own words and calculations. However, don't sweat it. If you can remember 2, 4, 6, 8 and how to count from 11 to 15, you can easily remember this system anytime you need to. I discovered the shortcut for memorizing the system while studying Ralph Eckert's YouTube training video on bank shots. He makes the bank shots you see in this diagram. Now, if you assume the common method of counting 10 for each diamond, you can see all of his bank shots are just a ratio of 3 units on the far rail to 8 units on the near rail. For example, when he shoots from over the side pocket, he aims to bank the object ball midway between the first and second diamond on the opposite rail. This amounts to 15 over 40, which reduces to 3/8. 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 40 8 times. This is the same 3 to 8 ratio for all these bank shots he shoots in his videos. Alright, let's take a closer look at the system by mapping these 8 to 3 ratio reference lines across the entire table. Let's assume each diamond represents 10 units, and the top rail is going to have a baseline of 3 units, and the bottom rail will have a baseline of 8 units. Notice with each successive line you simply add 3 to the top row and 8 to the bottom row from the previous line. Now if you draw lines between all of these numbers, you end up with the 10 reference lines you need to memorize to become a good bank pool player. See? I told you it was easy. Just memorize these 20 numbers and you're all set. Of course, I'm just kidding. You can ask my pool buddies. If I had to memorize all these numbers, I'd never make a bank shot in real life. I promise. If you can count from 11 to 15, and remember, 2, 4, 6, 8, this system will be a piece of cake. Fortunately, there's some memory tricks we can use to make this memorization task much simpler. The first memory trick is to drop all the first digits from the 2-digit numbers on the near rail, and voila, it's already starting to look simpler. You can see the repeating 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 pattern emerge, which we will leverage over and over again in the system. There's no more shortcuts from here though. You've got to memorize these numbers in this order. If you are banking cross corner, the 0 point is both the side pocket and the corner pocket on the other side of the table. It sort of works in reverse from other systems. You have to remember 8 is the nearest to your pocket and 0 is furthest away, which is the opposite for most other banking systems. So really the system should be named 8642, making banks is a piece of poo. But that doesn't make for a very catchy name. Nevertheless, if it helps you remember, that's the most important thing. The next step in the process is to understand rail regions. These are the regions you'll be shooting from to make all these bank shots. You'll see it's important to know these numbers because it will significantly reduce the time it takes to narrow the range of aiming points on the far rail. But first, let's understand the regions. To get the region numbers, add those 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 numbers we just talked about to the corresponding aiming numbers on the far rail and watch the pattern that emerges. Let's start with the region closest to your pocket. If you add 8 from the near rail and 3 from the far rail, they add up to 11. If you add 6 plus 6, you get 12. If you add 4 plus 9, you get 13. And if you add 2 plus 12, you get 14. When you get to the pockets, you can treat those as points instead of regions. So the side pocket is 0, and if you add 0 to 15, you get 15. Once you cross the side pocket, notice what happens to the region numbers. You add 8 to 18 to get 26. You add 6 to 21 to get 27. Add 4 and 24 to get 28. and 2 and 27 to get 29, and 0 and 30 to get 30. So technically I lied to you. To use this system you really have to remember how to count from 11 to 15 and all the way from 26 to 30. I know it's tricky, but whoever said banking was easy. One significant benefit of the 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 pattern is those numbers represent the exact distance from the nearest diamond going towards your pocket. This is the first gold nugget of the system. You will use this little nugget over and over again for the rest of your pool life. These reference points will tell you exactly where you need to aim on the far rail to give you the best chance for success. So it's important you remember the number 2 means you're 2 units away from the diamond going towards the pocket. So all the numbers work this way. If you are on the 6, that means the most precise bank shot will happen when your cue stick crosses 6 units from the diamond in this region. So let's put it all together in a nice little equation that's easy to remember. Simply put, your aim point is just the region you're shooting from minus the 2, 4, 6, 8 number. From now on, you'll always know where to approximately aim your one rail bank shots because you know which 11 to 15 or 26 to 30 region you're in and which 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 reference point you're closest to. You just have to subtract the reference point number from the region number. This is the whole reason you paid so much for this video. So here's an example. If you wanted to bank this object ball cross corner and you were shooting from region 27 and you happen to fall directly in line with the 6, you can simply subtract 6 from 27 to get your aiming point of 21 on the far rail. At least this is the aiming point you should be thinking about before making adjustments for table and equipment conditions. In summary, all you have to remember is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 11 through 15, or 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 26 through 30. Don't forget this works in the opposite direction too, and on all cross-side bank shots too. On cross-side banks, you only have to remember 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 11 through 15. Let's say you come across this layout and you've decided for whatever reason you're going to bank this shot. Where should you aim the bank and why? Pause the video and decide where you would aim it. The first step is to determine your 0 reference point for your cross corner bank shot. In this case, it's a side pocket. This will establish your 2, 4, 6, 8 numbers as well. The next step is to determine which diamond region you're in. You can do that by drawing an imaginary line between the cue ball and object ball and see where it crosses the rail. Next, determine which 2, 4, 6, 8 point you are closest to. Remember, the number also lets you know how many units you are away from the closest diamond in the direction of your pocket. Now that you have your region number and your reference point, you just need to subtract the reference point from the region number to get your answer. So 13 minus 4 equals 9. So you need to aim at the 9 or somewhere close to it to make the shot. So what happens when your object ball cue ball line doesn't fall onto one of the 10 reference lines? Well, it turns out there's all sorts of ways to fix the bank to make it, but I don't have enough time in this video to explain all the ways to get back in line, how to interpolate between lines, or how to widen the bank or shorten it. There's lots of great books and videos that explain exactly how to do that. In fact, Dr. Dave just came out with a video that explains how to make adjustments for banks and kick shots. See the video description for the link to his video. Well, it's time I need to fess up to another lie. This 2, 4, 6, 8 system doesn't work all over the table. It turns out it only works on a specific part of the table and best for fast or firm bank shots, which both Dr. Dave and Ralph explained in their material. But the good news is the bank shots you can use this system on come up all the time. You just need to know when to use it. The sweet spot for this 2, 4, 6, 8 system when banking cross corner is when your object ball is on a line that goes between the middle diamond on the short rail to the middle diamond on the far side of the side pocket. When your object ball gets further away from the rail, you need to cheat the system long and aim closer to the side pocket. And if your object ball is closer to the rail than the 2, 4, 6, 8 sweet spot, you need to cheat the other direction, towards the corner pocket. The cheat angles are exaggerated in the diagram. You typically only have to cheat 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch in either direction, which usually amounts to a unit or a unit and a half when picking your aiming point using the 2, 4, 6, 8 system. By the way, this is one of the ways to fix a bank shot that's not perfectly on line. Just aim a little left or right of the aim line that comes out of the equation. Most pool instructors teach the 2-to-1 or natural bank system. This is where you divide the diamond you're shooting over by 2 to find your aim point on the opposite rail. In fact, I highly recommend watching Tor Lowry's YouTube video called Supercharge Your Banking, which I put a link to in the description below. Tor walks you through the system in a very logical manner, similar to what I did for the 2, 4, 6, 8 system. In fact, to be a really good bank pool player, you need to understand both systems and when to use each, and even how to blend them together when you're in between sweet spots. So this is your homework assignment. You need to study the 2-to-1 system, and you need to know what part of the table you should be using it on. For now, just remember, when your object ball is somewhere in the middle of the table between corner pockets, the 2-to-1 system is more accurate because the object ball is rolling into the cushion and tends to widen towards the natural 2-to-1 reference line, which is why it's called the natural banking system. It's also more accurate for kick shots and when you need an object ball rolling with pocket speed, like when you're playing one pocket. For cross side bank shots, the 2-4-6-8 sweet spot reference line goes from the corner pocket to the third diamond on the far short rail. These reference lines are just that, reference lines. They vary from table to table. On diamonds, especially new ones, the sweet spot for this 2-4-6-8 system can go all the way back to the middle of the table. For old, slow Brunswick gold crowns, the 2-4-6-8 sweet spot will be even closer to the rail than what you see here. So you need to spend a little time to understand where the sweet spot is on the tables you play on. For the 2-to-1 natural banking system, the cross-side sweet spot goes from the middle diamond to the corner pocket on the far side. If you can't remember these reference lines, just draw an imaginary line down the middle of the table. And object balls closer to the banking rail will tend to bank better using the 2-4-6-8 system, and the balls on the other side of the line will tend to bank better using the 2-to-1 natural bank system. All bank shots behave differently depending on how hard you hit them. When learning to bank with a new system, you should pick one speed and stick with that speed the best you can. Later, you will learn one way to fix offline banks requires hitting it faster or slower than this ideal speed. For now, just memorize one speed for each system. For 2-4-6-8, I recommend focusing on 2-pocket speed. Most people call it 2-rail speed, but I don't want to confuse it later with 2-rail banks, where you need to use a faster 3-pocket speed. The pocket speed is just the number of pockets the object ball sees on its journey. So 2-pocket speed means the object ball will see 2 pockets on its journey across the table, and the journey will end before it gets to the third pocket. When you miss a 1-rail bank trying to use this system, and the object ball comes to rest near your pocket, it means you hit the shot too soft or too hard for the 2-4-6-8 system. Here's the final exam. You're playing a game of bank pool, and your opponent just gave you ball in hand. You need one ball to win the game, and you have a sitting duck just past the head string, begging to be drained cross-side. Where would you set the cue ball to give you the best chance to win, and why? Pause the video and think about your answer. Take your time. Better yet, pause the video and go try it on a pool table yourself, and then come back and see what I think is the best possible solution. Okay, here we are at the final exam. Let's see how this system plays out in practice. We have ball in hand, and we can place it anywhere we want. So where should we put it? Well, first you need to determine which banking system you're going to use. If the object ball is closer to the rail, you should be thinking 2-4-6-8, and if it's closer to this side of the table, you should be thinking the natural 2-to-1. Of course, you can always check, because you know where the 2-4-6-8 sweet spot is. It goes from this corner to the first diamond on the cross corner, and this is close enough to be considered 2-4-6-8, so we can commit to 2-4-6-8. If it was on this line, which is from the middle diamond on this end rail to that corner pocket, you'd be closer to the 2-to-1, and if you need to make any adjustments in between, you can do that at this time. But we know we're on the 2-4-6-8 sweet spot, so let's commit to it. So let's go through the reference lines. Well, the first thing you need to do is establish your 0 reference point, which it's here because we're banking cross-side. So this is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And we're in the regions 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So let's just go through the reference lines. It's 15 minus 0, that's not so good. 14 minus 2 is looking really good, although it typically wouldn't look this good. If it were lying somewhere in between, you'd have to kind of go to this 13 minus 4 and maybe play some interpolation games. But for this case, 14 minus 2 is looking really good. So let's commit to it. 14 minus 2 is 12. So set the cue ball between the 2 and the 12 and forget about everything else. Just focus on the 12. Your pre-shot routine, your aim and alignment should be focused on 12, and think 2-pocket speed. And forget about everything else. Just hit it at the 12. And there you have it, 2468. Banking is a piece of cake. Now, if you were paying attention, that's exactly the same shot you hit, that I hit to open the video. It might look a little different or more complicated, but it's not. You're just a little wiser. And maybe next time you play, you can recognize this reference line. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider subscribing and like. Now let me show you a couple drills we can do to master this 2468 system. The first drill is sort of a test, and the second one is to internalize the system. Alright, let's get started. Before I get to the drills, I just wanted to show the final exam in animation form for those viewers that are hearing impaired or speak English as a second language and were following along the slide deck. It's also good for you to review the process one more time quickly. First, determine which system you're going to use. See if you need to make any adjustments. Find the reference line you need to bury the bank and set the cue ball directly on that line. In this case, it just happened to be directly on the 14 minus 2 equals 12 line. And that's the final answer. At some point, you need to get out of PowerPoint and start playing pool in the real world. Who knows, if I ever left my house, I might even have a Fargo rating one day. But anyway, this first drill is as much of a test as it is a drill. And it's to make sure you can bank a ball straight enough to use any banking system. The idea is you want to hit the object ball straight into a rail and make it rebound back into the cue ball and make the cue ball hit within a diamond of where it started. So it kind of looks like this. And there you go. In order to master the 2468 system, it's important you get proficient at this drill. And it's important that you learn to aim at specific reference points between the diamonds. In fact, there's only one reference line in the system that goes through a diamond, and it's the least used line in the whole system. So 98% of the time, you're always aiming to bank a ball between two diamonds. I used golf tees so I can see them when I'm down on the cue ball, and they're each separated by 1/10 of the distance between the diamond. So the drill is to do the straight back bill at each golf tee and successfully bank an object ball into a cue ball and make it come back to this rail within a diamond 10 times in a row. And I use stripes for both the object ball and the cue ball so I can see when I put spin on the ball. If you put spin on the cue ball, you can actually throw the object ball offline, and if you can also spin an object ball and make it rebound offline after touching a cushion, neither of which is a good thing. So you can actually use that to fix banks, but you don't want to do that in this drill. So I'll just do the fourth tee here, and I don't use reinforcement dots for this because it's important that you be able to set a cue ball directly in line without the aid of a sticker for cases like the final exam. And you can train your body, eyes, and stance to align to this. So line up for the fourth tee and just try to hit a stop shot with no spin. And I used the 15 because I use tan chalk, and I can see the tan mark on this. If you have blue or green chalk, I recommend you use a 13 or a 9 ball. But anyway, that way you can see your off-center hits by looking at the chalk mark. But just try to hit the object ball straight. Just like that. So it comes in between these two diamonds. And you want to do that 10 times in a row before you move on to the next drill. This drill is harder than it looks, but if you can't consistently bank balls without putting spin on the cue ball or throwing the object ball offline, this 2468 system is not going to work very well. If you have trouble completing this drill, you should stop doing it and go work on your aim, alignment, stroke, and really focus on your pre-shot routine. Scott Rohleder has some great videos on fundamentals and lots of great drills for players of all levels that should get you to the point you can nail this test quite easily. This drill reminds me of the shortest pool lesson I ever got. I was down in Kentucky at the Derby practicing this drill without the golf tees, and there's this old guy there, old enough to give Moses bank pool lessons. And he was watching me mangle this drill. I couldn't even get the object ball to come back and hit the cue ball. And he walks up to me and says something to the effect, if we have a saying around these parts, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I looked at him and said, I don't understand, what do you mean? And he says, that bank ain't broke, just shoot her square in the eyes. I said, shoot her square in the eyes? He says, yeah, if you want it to go right, shoot her in the left eye, and if you want it to go left, shoot her in the right eye. But if you want it to go straight, just shoot her square in the eyes. So I was like, okay. I wasn't going to argue. He might be shooting me in the eyes. But anyway, that's the whole point of this drill. Just remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you want it to go straight, just shoot her square in the eyes. There you have it, from the Dr. Dave of Kentucky, without all the fancy videos and websites. If you made it this far, it probably means you fell asleep and accidentally left the video running, but we finally made it to the last dance and the whole point of the video, which is to identify the 2, 4, 6, 8 sweet spot on your table. We're going to start this cross corner drill from the reference line we discussed earlier, which is the line between the middle diamond on the end rail and the middle diamond past the side pocket. We are going to be banking balls cross corner from each of the 10 reference lines to the close corner pocket just off the screen to the left. This line represents banking balls with 2 pocket speed, which means the object ball will be sliding into the cushion. If you find you're missing the shot long, which means you're hitting the short rail first, you should adjust this line to the right. If you find you're missing shot short, which means you're hitting the long rail first, you should adjust this line to the left. This table is a Montebello Brunswick that's been diamondized, which means it has diamond rails and banks shorter than most Brunswick tables. But they're worn in, and I find that most newer diamond tables bank short. So the sweet spot on diamonds will be closer to the pocket. And worn in Brunswick tables and tables that bank long will have the sweet spot more along this line. But your job is to find out what the line is for your table. It's somewhere in between. I use golf tees for all the aiming points so I can see them when I'm down on the cue ball. I measured the distance between 2 diamonds and divided it by 10 to get a reference unit. Then I put tees at every 3 reference units. So this is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. I'm not sure you can see this on camera, but the reference holes that I have are not hollow. So there's actually stickers left over from the holes. So I use those holes to mark my 2, 4, 6, 8 reference points. So and you need to use something flat because your cue stick is going to go over the top of them. So I have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. I don't know if you can see it on the far side, but this far pocket is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And that's how you set up your 2, 4, 6, 8 reference points. To set up the reinforcement sweet spot stickers, stand behind the golf tee aiming points and line them up with the reference point on the other side. And then lay your cue stick along the sweet spot you can use as a reference line. So I'm right on the 14 minus 2 reference line. So this is 14 and there's the 12. 14 minus 2 is 12. And then I lay the sticker right on that line, and I lay the sticker down right next to my cue stick. So that's how you set up the stickers. Okay, let's dance. You can use this setup for all sorts of 2, 4, 6, 8 drills, but you don't want to do a bunch of drills until you know where the sweet spot is on your table. So your job during this drill is to figure out the 2, 4, 6, 8 sweet spot on your table. Remember, you now know all the permanent reference lines that will never change. So your job is to figure out where along those lines the sweet spot is on your table. Remember, the object ball is on the sweet spot when you can make it using 2 pocket speed without side spin. Remember, side spin changes the rebound angle after it touches the cushion, which puts you on a different reference line. Let me say that again. You will know the object ball is on the sweet spot when you can make it using 2-pocket speed without side spin. Memorize it. It's the foundation of the 2-4-6-8 system and the basis of all adjustments you need to make when you're not in line. Let's go through all the reference lines using the sweet spot on my table, and let me show you what I've learned so far. Maybe you can teach me something. This 11 minus 8, remember 11 minus 2, 4, 6, 8, is one of the trickier lines in the system because the bank angle is so narrow. I found the best way to play this shot is to draw it a little bit to give the 3 some room to pass the cue ball on the way back to the pocket. So just aim at the 3, don't use side spin, focus on 2-pocket speed, and that's it. Alright, these next 4 reference lines are the bread and butter of the 2-4-6-8 system. These lines and their variations represent 50 to 60% of all the banks you'll attempt in a game because they apply to both cross-side and cross-corner shots. Once you cross the side pocket, all these reference lines just apply to cross-corner. So focus on these 4 lines and practice them the most, and if you don't have time to practice all the lines, just practice these 4. This one is a 12 minus 6, remember 11, 12 region, minus 2, 4, 6 units away from the diamond. So this is just 12 minus 6 is 6. So just focus on the 6 and forget about everything else. Just hit it at the 6 and get her done. Alright, if I ever to write a book about the 2-4-6-8 system, this 13 minus 4 equals 9 would be on the cover because it encapsulates everything you need to know about the system and why it's so valuable. Unless you hit this shot a million times, when you first come across it, there's nothing that screams dead bank. In fact, it looks like you're in no man's land because there's simply nothing to aim for. But if you know 11, 12, 13 regions minus 2, 4 units, you can see this is indeed a dead bank, and it gives you something specific to shoot for, the 9. Also, the shot comes up all the time. I guarantee the next time you play pool, some variation of 13 minus 4 is going to come up in a game. It's the most common shot in the system, so spend the time it takes to master it. But just like everything else, once we know we have to aim at the 9, just forget about everything else. Just focus on the 9, aim at the 9, and just bury the 9. Alright, this 14 minus 2 shot we beat like a dead horse during the video, so I don't want to say much about this, although I practiced this one using the 2 ball, because 14 minus 2 is 12, and 12 is 2 away from 10. So I use the 2 ball to practice this, and I really think of it as a 2 and not a 10. Also, if you use this logic, all the even balls work this way. So you'll be 2 reference units away, you'll be aiming at the 2 for the 2. The same is true of the 6, the 8, and the 4. Not sure why it matters, it's an interesting observation. But anyway, this is the final exam. You've already done this before. Just aim at the 2 and act like you've done it before. Alright, this next shot, 15 minus 0, I want to dedicate to Ralph Eckert. This is the shot that planted the seed that gave birth to the 2-4-6-8 system. If this system ever amounts to a hill of beans, it should be named after Ralph. He's the real father of the 2-4-6-8 system. So Ralph, this one's for you. Thank you, Ralph, from the rest of the pool world. All right, let me clear this pocket out. Once you cross the side pocket, you need to reset the rail regions. So now we'll be using 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and new reference points, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And so now we're on the 26 minus 8, which is 18. So 18 is 8 away from 10. So I use the 8 to practice this, or 2 away from 20. But the only thing I think about is if I can bank this 8 ball in a team game, I'll be drinking free all night long. Someone buy me a drink. Every time I see the 1 ball, it reminds me it's the one and only time the 1 ball comes up in the system. In fact, all the balls 1 through 10 come up exactly once, which is why they're perfect for practicing this system. And if you use this setup, this will eventually become simply known as the 1 line. But really, it's 27 minus 6, which is 21, which is 1 away from 20. So really, this is just a 1. Just hit it at the 1 and be done. Now chicks, they dig the 28 minus 4 ball. You split the pocket on a couple of these 28 minus 4s in front of a big crowd, you're not going to be having any problem with the ladies, if you know what I mean. If you are having problems, it's not going to be the 28 minus 4's fault. You can thank me for that tip later. This 29 minus 2 is just straight up ninja. It's the haymaker of 1 rail banks. You pot a 29 minus 2 in a game, you just walk over and grab your money because they're not getting up off the mat. But never talk about your 29 minus 2 kills. It's not cool. Oh my God, every time I get on the last ball, I can't get Darren Appleton out of my head. Darren Appleton is a monster at drills. I once saw him do this drill where there's 600 balls on the table, each separated by about a millimeter or 2, and he had to pocket them in order without hitting another ball or touching a rail. Damnedest thing I've ever seen. And I've been all over the county. I've been to a goat rodeo and 3 county fairs. So I've seen all there is to see. But don't panic. Just remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you want it to go straight, just shoot her square in the eyes. How about them apples, Darren?